So, today we have Steven Universe here on this channel. I really love this show, and I know how incredible it is and how much it can teach. Today, we're going to analyze an episode one really like from the first season, called Island Adventure. This episode talks about how closed-off people build barriers between themselves and others because of some fear or insecurity, but that beyond these barriers, they are good people. It speaks about selfishness, making the best of the situation you're in, and how important it is to allow yourself to be who you truly are. So, let's take a look at this episode. Steven is super excited because he learned to control the teleporter, and he rushes to share the news with Sadie and Lars. But the two of them seem really down and unhappy at that moment. They immediately start arguing over something trivial and unnecessary, showing how they both had a lot of internal frustrations holding them back, even from calmly handling simple things. These arguments were nothing more than an attempt to find a release for everything that was eating away at them inside. Then, Lars says he's tired of that place and wants to go somewhere new, but what I really think he wanted was a new life. Steven then notices how both of them were having issues in their relationship, and he gets the idea to use the teleporter to take Sadie and Lars to a place they'd never been before, specifically, an island. In Steven's view, a new environment would improve things and do them both good. However, as soon as they arrive on the island, Lars already shows some hesitation about the place and an intense urge to leave. So, despite how much he hated and was tired of the place he was before, as he'd made clear, his fear, rejection, and resistance to new experiences were stronger than his exhaustion and dislike for the place he spent almost all of his afternoons. Still, Lars is eventually persuaded by the two to explore the island, but Sadie has this look that shows she already knew Lars well and knew he'd want to leave very soon. She then makes a bad decision, which we'll see later. While she and Steven talk about the beautiful and interesting things on the island, Lars only focuses on the negative aspects he finds and digs up in his mind, justifying to himself that all of it was unnecessary and silly. This keeps his barrier firmly up against the whole experience. Then, when Steven mentions that there might be a dangerous creature living on the island, Lars doesn't think twice before deciding to leave, which makes total sense and would be the same decision I'd make too. But when they go back, they discover that the teleporter has simply disappeared, which drives Lars completely frantic and overwhelmed with the situation. Now that he was no longer in control and didn't have the choice of giving this experience a chance or not, he had to deal with it, and his discontent only grew worse. He starts to feel some resentment toward his friends, believing they didn't understand him and were the reason he was stuck in a place he didn't want to be. And he wasn't wrong about that. Those things were true, but he was wrong in how he was reacting to it all. He kept isolating himself, feeding into the frustration that was consuming him. The next day, Sadie has Lars cook some fish she caught, and when she notices that he actually cooks really well, she gives him a sincere compliment about it. We can clearly see how this compliment catches Lars by surprise, bringing out a side of him we don't usually see, even if only for a moment, a more vulnerable, authentic, and funny side that he tries to keep hidden every day. Maybe it's out of fear of getting hurt, past frustrations, traumas, negative feelings, or destructive thoughts. All these things cause what we see most of the time not to be the real Lars, but rather a barrier of sarcasm, pessimism, and coldness. And there are so many people like this, amazing people who close themselves off and rarely show who they really are because of factors we can't see without a lot of understanding and patience. Steven then sings a very beautiful song that speaks exactly about this, about acceptance, about allowing yourself to be who you are. When he mentions staying where they wanted to be, I don't interpret this as the island itself, since Lars never liked being there, but rather as a place where the two of them could be together. Their company, their love, their understanding of each other. It would be nice to find for themselves different feelings, perspectives, and experiences. As time goes on, it seems like Lars is starting to enjoy the island, but it doesn't take long for him to show how devastated he is by it all. This time, however, his frustration and sadness feel more real, more authentic, and they make more sense. He simply didn't like being there. He was just trying to make the best of the situation, fighting to accept it because he couldn't do anything about it. And of course, he had every right to be sad and miss home. After a long time of bottling things up in an unhealthy way, he finally breaks down, crying out of a deep fear that he might never return home. Sadie tries to comfort him. Lars then asks if she ever feels lonely, even when surrounded by people. This question captures how he felt misunderstood by those around him, and when Sadie says that she feels that way too, he feels understood. He saw someone who got him. Lars then kisses her in a way that almost seems to soothe his soul's pain in that moment. It's something therapeutic. Suddenly, the invisible creature that had been on the island all along begins chasing the three of them, and Lars Lars starts crying desperately, saying repeatedly that he wants to go home. This finally overwhelms Sadie with guilt, and she takes everyone to the teleporter, which she had hidden from them. When Lars realizes that she's the reason they were all trapped on the island, he gets extremely angry, and the two of them have a serious fight over it. Let's be honest, that was an incredibly selfish thing for Sadie to do. Even though she thought Lars needed the experience to feel better, it doesn't change the fact that she essentially made him stay on an island for months, far from home, completely against his will, and without any idea he was being deceived. On top of that, she may have done it partly to get closer to him romantically, which, to be fair, is not exactly right. It raises questions about how much Sadie truly cared for Lars if she acted that way. In the end, she does somewhat redeem herself by saving his life, defeating the monster. And despite everything, even though it stemmed from a selfish act, this experience ended up teaching both of them important lessons about each other and themselves. In a way, it changed them for the better. So express yourself. Don't keep your barriers up all the time.